Welcome to the Talking Advisory and Client Solutions podcast. My name is Leah Crowley, and in this series we're taking a look at a range of topics that you might know a little bit about but want to get a better understanding of. We will discuss a range of topics like buying and selling a business, valuations, due diligence, debt advisory, sustainability, financial transformation, and a whole lot more. In this episode, we'll be talking about how to target businesses to buy. And we've got Simon James, Partner Advisory at HLB Mann Judd. How are you today?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. So we've been sort of exploring the different facets, and I've realized there's so many in what goes into buying a business. But we want to sort of take it back to the beginning now and talk about why you should be targeting a business and why and how and is it possible. And I thought, let's have a chat today about that.
Sounds good to me.
If you're happy to, of course.
Of course.
So let's start off, right? Before you even start targeting a business to buy, why would you be trying to buy a business?
Trying to buy a business isn't a strategic plan. It's probably a part of an enabler of a strategic plan. So if you're trying to move into new geographical markets or expand your product range, whatever, buying a business might be a faster, a cheaper or less risky way of actually achieving that. So it's really looking at what you're trying to do strategically and saying, oh, is there a way of actually buying something that will actually help that?
So it's almost more strategic and less opportunistic.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you actually think about what most strategies are, it's either market development, which is either moving to new geographical markets, it's product development, which is new products or services, or market penetration, which is effectively just taking out the competition to gain market share. So all of which you can achieve by buying a business.
Yeah, right. I think we were talking about it a couple of episodes ago that you may even, like you said, take out the competition, but also taking out the competition, buying the competition would mean that if you were trying to price match each other, well, you don't have to do that anymore if you're the only business.
Yeah,
so it's probably better for your bottom line each year.
Yeah, your bottom line. And I suppose in this tough labour market as well, people are actually acquiring businesses just to acquire skilled people.
Isn't that crazy to think that's how we've gone post a couple of years, the pandemic? You're actually after staff as opposed to the business itself.
Indeed.
Well, it could be. I mean, I assume it's a combination. But
it usually is, yeah.
Yeah. So what criteria are commonly considered when you start to target?
Well, price, obviously. Obviously, you're not targeting something that you can't afford. But I suppose you've got to kind of balance that with, you don't necessarily have to buy all of the business all at once. You can kind of buy a share of it and kind of have a strategic partnership that you've got an interest in. Or, can you get away with buying the business with some type of earn-out arrangement so you're not paying for it all at once anyway. But obviously price is kind of critical. Other criteria, the one that's a non-negotiable that everybody mentions is cultural fit. There's no point buying a business that you're trying to integrate with your business if it's culturally not going to be aligned, unless you are just buying a business for its pure IP or product. Other things that people think about is industry reputation. What's it going to do to your brand? Is it going to enhance it? Is it a brand that you're going to keep operating under, or are you going to kind of merge them in? Other things that people think about are customer conflicts. Say, for example, if you're a media business and you look after Toyota, you wouldn't necessarily target another media business that's looking after Honda, for example, because you end up losing a customer.
Yeah, sure.
The other thing, one of the things that I always have on my list is how easy is it going to do the deal and integrate the business. There's no point going down the path with somebody if it's actually going to be so hard to actually get the transaction over the line.
Like you feel the tension from the get-go. It might not be worth the heartache.
Correct. And if there's a big reliance on the owner of the business, and they, a critical person, have they got strength of management around them? Are they too critical to the business? So they're common things you need to think about.
It was interesting you were talking about culturally aligned, because when I think about that, I think, how would you know how the culture is? Is it a super obvious thing? I mean, it can't always be obvious. So would that be during the due diligence phase that you would realise that you were not culturally aligned?
Yeah, that's obviously a point that you kind of look at it there. But there's kind of the market reputation, depending on, if you're buying a competitor, say, that's in an adjacent geographical area, you might have come across them before. You might have employed some staff or interviewed some staff from them. The conversations with your customers, how they kind of perceive these people. There's lots of ways to kind of find out information around, what it's like culturally inside.
And it kind of sounds like if you are looking for that kind of feedback from people, you've probably been thinking about it for a few years.
Correct. Yeah. There's not many people make snap decisions around buying businesses.
I wouldn't think so.
Honest. Unless it's somebody that's on difficult times and they need to accelerate a sale.
Yeah, right. Of course. How much desktop research do you do, and can you do?
Oh, so much. You can find out so much about a business now. I'm going to say since the invent of the internet, but that's been around for quite a while now.
The World Wide Web.
The World Wide Web. But there is so much information there that you can find. Most companies have obviously got the websites and Facebook pages. You actually find out a lot about not just the company itself, but also about the owners and the key management in there. You get a sense of who they are, what they're doing, how active they are in the industry. You kind of overlay that with financial information that you can get if they're lodging financial statements or credit scores. The other thing that we kind of do a lot from a desktop research point of view is just the relationship check, who knows who.
Like even just down to LinkedIn connections?
Yeah, and obviously if you've got the expensive versions of LinkedIn that kind of we run, you can find out who knows who. And that's always a good way to facilitate some conversations to actually get a bit of a sense of what the business is like under the hood.
Yeah, right. And that's the kind of thing that you could just tap away at.
Correct, yeah. And the more desktop research you do in the initial stages, it is actually vital, especially when you've got your kind of shopping list of what you're looking for and why you're looking for that type of business in the first place. Yeah,
so you think doing that kind of research yourself is sort of imperative before you actually make that first step?
Absolutely. If you think of it as like you're sort of buying a house, you've got your kind of criteria of what you want, how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, do you want a garage, that type of thing, and you kind of prioritize some of those things. So it's if you've got a few targets that you're looking at, it actually makes the negotiation and transaction process a little bit easier because your eggs are not all in one basket. You're actually considering a few options.
Yeah, and I guess if you have done all of your research or as much as you can before you make that initial step, there has to be some sort of respect from the vendor that you've kind of done your homework and you've taken an interest in who they are, what the company or the business represents. That has to get you off on the right foot before you even start, I imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's that kind of initial approach is how do you do it? If you're looking to buy a business directly, you just phone up one of your competitors and say,
I buy you?
Can I buy you? Sometimes you might get lucky, but that's not necessarily the best way of doing it. As a third-party advisor, what we kind of do is reach out to the organisations and facilitate the conversation without actually mentioning that we've got a potential buyer that's found them.
Yeah, okay.
We can have more genuine conversations with them and actually find out, one, more about the business, but more about what they want and how best to position it. So when you do come back a few weeks later and say, we've got somebody that might be interested in buying you, you're actually positioning it in the best way. So, you only get one chance to make a first impression type of thing. So,
true.
Maximising success through that.
And how can you go about making that initial approach? I mean, you're talking about having a third party. Is that kind of the best way to go about these things?
I think so. I mean, lots of transactions that come about is just because somebody does pick up the phone and say, we'd like to buy you. It is harder when it's a competitor, so that confidentiality piece always comes into play there. So having a third party in the middle kind of helps set the kind of parameters around how the conversations are going to proceed, and just making sure we don't breach any confidentiality on either side, and word get out that a potential transactions afoot.
When do the names, when does the confidentiality sort of curtain get raised and each party knows who the other is?
It very early on in the piece.
Okay.
But at least using like myself as an advisor in the middle, you can actually be making those approaches without anybody know who you are.
Yeah. Okay.
Initially, because word does get out, and in different industries, people do talk. But yeah, no, it's fairly early on. But at least you've actually made sure you've got the right people in the room that are talking, and the bounds of confidentiality are understood before those kind of names are kind of brought together, as it were. Yeah,
for sure, and that both parties are at least open to that conversation.
Absolutely,
yeah. Interesting.
And what is it? The other bit of that is, all businesses are for sale. I've never really met a business owner that isn't willing to have a conversation.
Okay.
Because I suppose they don't know where it's going and don't know what kind of price that's going to be put on the table. Everything's for sale at the right price.
Always open for opportunity, and
always want to have a conversation.
Yeah, and like you said before, it may not be the whole entire business that they're wanting to sell anyway. I mean, there's so many different facets, right?
Correct. Yeah.
What can go wrong in the initial stages of discussions? Is it that the word gets out?
Confidentiality breaches could be a major factor, but mostly it's the vendor's not sale ready. I've always been an advocate. If you own a business, you should be sale ready. Just in case,
all the time.
Just in case somebody knocks. Well, if your business, you got to treat your business as an asset, and you've got to be maintaining it, knowing what the value. What its value is, and doing things to kind of enhance that value, which have it sell ready all the time. So that's one. What else goes wrong? If you've got multiple vendors, so you've got multiple shareholders that own a business, if they're not on the same page, they don't have a shareholders agreement, there isn't any kind of drag along rights, so somebody's got the power to bring people along. That can always be an issue. Vendors not knowing their tax situation, so it's all very well an offer coming in to say we're going to pay $10 million for the business. If the vendor thinks, well, I'm only going to get $5 million after tax, or but he might actually get $10 million if it's structured properly. So the tax consequences that can slow things down kind of initially.
And we hear about buyer fatigue. Who do you find is faster to throw in the towel during negotiations, where they're just like, it's just, no, not now. It's not going to happen right now?
I see it equally on both sides, to be honest. People that, from a vendor's point of view, they're effectively selling a child, especially if it's business that's been built over a long period of time. It might have even been passed down. It might be the father's business or mother's business or grandparents' business that got passed down. So there's the emotional piece there. And then from a buyer's point of view, if the transaction's too hard, it's like, it's time and effort on both sides to go through a transaction. So if you're not up for the journey, people can get off the bus at any point in time. Because
it's a pretty full-on journey, right?
Oh, it is, but there is a process and a methodology. If you kind of go through it and understand both sides of the fence in terms of what needs to be done, then it shouldn't be too hard. But as I said, if people are not ready, financial information's not there, people have not got the money to make the transaction work in the first place. You need the finance to buy it in the end.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously there are different companies of different sizes, but in my mind, I just feel like it would be near impossible to try and do this by yourself. You definitely need a third party involved, taking both sides through the steps of this whole process, I would imagine.
Correct. There's multiple parties in every transaction. Both sides typically have legal representation to look through the purchase agreements, and usually there's a bunch of accountants on both sides as well, in terms of analysing the financial information or helping prepare the financial information. You add in that HR people, IT people that need to kind of look at the business and see how it's going to integrate on a go-forward basis. There's multiple stakeholders involved in it. Yeah,
and I realise there's no point in trying to hold things back or, information, from this process. But do you ever find that people do?
Absolutely.
And why do you think they do it?
It's a confidentiality point of view as much as anything. If you're a competitor, I don't really want to show you who my customers are, the prices I'm charging those customers and the margins I'm making on those customers until probably late in the piece.
The last second.
But it doesn't mean with the right process you can actually do proper diligence along the way. You just redact the customer names.
Okay.
Call it customer ABC. We can actually provide the information along the way to make sure the deal stacks up until the end. So there are ways to get around it. Similarly, employee names or wage rates or roles and responsibilities, you're not sharing that information. You don't necessarily want to bring everybody inside the tent early, coming back to the confidentiality piece. So, it's who's involved on both sides.
How long is a piece of string? Is what I thought you were going to answer like that. But on average, how long should you expect this process to take?
I usually say 3 to 6 months.
Okay.
But I'll break that down into the courting piece could take years.
Yeah.
So you might have started that initial conversation. We're interested in buying you, and that could actually happen over years and years and years.
And that's a real personal thing, isn't it?
That is a personal thing. That's a kind of catch up with people, and similarly, if we're actually advising a business that's looking to kind of exit, we kind of recommend you start those conversations early and say, you're going to buy me, but you're not going to buy me yet. You're going to buy me in 2 or 3 years' time.
Yeah, right.
Once I build the business up to this.
Yeah, right.
But it doesn't. You can have those conversations. Yeah. So the courting can take a while. But if you're not actually completing the transaction in a 3 to 6 month time period, something's fundamentally wrong.
And could it be that people are withholding those confidential things, or a whole heap of reasons?
Going back to, if you're not actually sharing information at the appropriate times, the transaction's going to fall over because people say we're spending money doing this is and time. This is too hard. So there might be structural things. There might be, for example, a big contract that you're renegotiating, and we're not going to pay the transaction value until we know that this contract has been renewed, for example. So there might be things like that actually prolong the length of time. But apart from that, if it's just understanding the business, understanding the value in the business, and understanding how to think about the merger integration piece, if you're spending more than 6 months, then you're doing something wrong somewhere along the way.
So you got you've got a couple of years as the warm up, and then you've got the 3 to 6 months as the actual process. But then there's a certain amount of time afterwards where it just takes a while for everything to smooth out and get running again. Or do you find businesses, because they've done that 3 to 6 month process, that they can almost hit the ground running? I
think after you've signed on the dotted line or the transaction's completed, if you're not hitting the ground running, you've missed the trick.
Okay.
There can be instances that it's very hard to do. Going back to the point around who's inside the tent and the confidentiality piece, if for confidentiality point of view, you've only been speaking to the vendor and you've not had a chance to meet the senior management team or really understand any of that, then you're not necessarily hitting the ground running on day one.
You don't have the whole picture, do you?
Because you've not got the whole picture.
Yeah.
Having said that, you should have a plan of what to do on day one anyway.
Yeah, okay.
And the communication piece is obviously critical at that point of view. You don't want to blow up the whole transaction on day one.
Oh my gosh, can you imagine?
Yeah.
All that effort for that.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you want to touch on with targeting a business to buy?
The other point is really be brave at this point in time. Debts or interest rates have just gone up a little bit this week. Another 0.5%, but debt is still relatively cheap. Business valuations are, they're reasonable. Is that what I'd say? So you can be brave. You should actually think about it. Now's the time to actually look over the fence and see, is it worth actually having a look at some transactions? Yes, be a bit braver in the strategic plan.
So if you've been having that chat for the last couple of years,
yeah,
maybe it's time to
to actually execute on some of these things. Absolutely.
Yeah, what an exciting time. Well, thank you very much for all the insight and going through that process. It's really interesting because I know that everything, not one of these are all the same. They're all a bit different, but it's nice to kind of just get an idea of how the process goes anyway.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you, Simon.
No problem at all.
Simon James's expertise and knowledge is part of HLB Manjudd's Advisory and Client Solutions Services. For more information, please visit our website hlb.com.au.